Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So it is time for me to start rolling out my 2024-2025 season standings predictions. And we are going to start with the Metro Division, my home division where the New York Islanders play. And it was a very weird division last year, considering the fact that even though they had the President's Trophy winners in the New York Rangers and the Carolina Hurricanes were only like 3 or 4 points back of them, it was probably the worst division in all of hockey, considering the fact my New York Islanders ended up finishing third in the division with 94 points. The Washington Capitals just barely snuck in the wild card. Pittsburgh absolutely exploded until like the final couple weeks of the season. New Jersey was the biggest disappointment in the entire NHL. Philly collapsed in the back half, and Columbus just kind of stunk for the most part. But after this offseason, especially teams like the Washington Capitals and New Jersey Devils have made pretty massive adds, and now I think that this is one of the more stronger divisions in the NHL heading into next season. So it is time for us to start rolling out these standing predictions, and I am going to start at eighth. And in eighth, no surprise here, but I have the Columbus Blue Jackets. After trading Patrick Laine as well as the tragic passing of Johnny Gaudreau, it's not an exaggeration to say that they probably have the worst forward core in the entire NHL. First line is going to be like Sean Monahan, Boone Jenner, and Kirill Marchenko. I like Marchenko. I think he's actually going to have a solid season. But when compared to other teams' forward cores, especially in the Metro Division, it is without a doubt the worst in the NHL. The defense core, not that impressive as well. Outside of Zach Werenski, you got Werenski, Severson, Provorov, two okay second pair guys. Juracek maybe takes a big step, but I don't think you can expect him to be like a good second pair guy at 20 years old. Jack Johnson, Eric Goodbranson, as well as their goalie tandem of Tarasov and Merzlikins is also probably bottom five in the NHL. I really like the hiring of Dean Evison. I think down the line, he could potentially be the coach that can get this team back on track, take steps, but that's probably not going to happen this season. And obviously they're dealing with a lot off the ice. So considering the fact that last year they were bad basically like bottom 10 in every single statistic across the goddamn board. I think that they're going to be battling it out with the San Jose Sharks, not to spoil my Pacific Division predictions, but they're probably going to be battling it out for the worst team in the entire NHL. At number 7, if you've been watching my offseason videos, you know that I'm not that high on the Philadelphia Flyers. Coming into this season, I have them at 78 points with a 34, 38, and 10 record. When looking at them last year, they started out so amazing, 25, 14, and 6, but then in the back half of the season went 13, 19, and 5. I tend to believe that they are that team in the back half of the season, especially probably the main counter argument against the Philadelphia Flyers being good is after they lost Carter Hart, which again, fuck Carter Hart if what he's alleged is true. But when looking at with Carter Hart, this team had a very solid goalie tandem with Carter Hart and Sam Ersson. Now you're going to have Ersson and Fedotov. Fedotov was not that good at the NHL level when he came over. They just do not have stability in net anymore. And when you don't have a ton of offensive firepower, yes, Philly has some depth within their forward core. I think they have 3 solid lines, but nothing that really shocks you unless Michkov is immediately out of the gate a 60 to 70 point guy. Their forward core is just a lot of average. Unless Sean Couturier bounces back, I really don't see this forward core doing too much. The defense core could potentially be good with young guys like Jamie Drysdale and Cam York, as well as Sam Sanheim and Rasmus Ristolainen. But overall, I think that this team just Tortorella will have them half decent, but probably they'll be sellers at the deadline and result under 85 points after not having probably a fiery start like last season. In 6th in the Metro Division, I have the Pittsburgh Penguins with the record of 38, 34, and 10, good for 86 points. When looking at it, this forward core outside of Sidney Crosby is not that impressive. Evgeny Malkin has regressed in recent years. Raquel really fell off a cliff last year. I think he's going to be better this year, but is no longer a 30 and 30 level guy. They got Kevin Hayes. They got a pick to take on Kevin Hayes. Anthony Beauvillier is probably going to be mixing it up in that top 6. That is not a good sign. As well as Brian Rust is probably like a good second liner at this time. Rucker McGrody, you can't expect him to be anything more than like a 40-point guy in his rookie year coming out of Michigan. So I'm not that impressed in this forward core. I don't think that they're going to have the firepower. The goalie tandem, it's average in my opinion. I think Tristan Jarry is a little bit overhated. He's a perfectly okay starter, but Ned as the backup doesn't really move me that much as well. The defense score might be the reason that this team is pretty decent. I really like their big 3 of Carlson. I think Carlson's going to go for north of 60 points. Chris Letang and Marcus Pettersson. That's a very solid top 3. I don't really like Ryan Graves that much. If this team were to have some success, they're going to have to turn around the power play. It was bottom 5 in the entire NHL last season. They still have some names on that top power play like Carlson and Crosby. So I don't think that they're going to be that good. They could potentially be a sleeper team, but as of right now, I have them below the Capitals and the Islanders. Speaking of the Washington Capitals, Capitals, I have them in 5th in the division with a 41, 31, and 10 record, good for 92 points. I do not have them in the playoffs, and I know what you guys might be screaming right now. Mike, they had 91 points last season. They objectively improved their roster compared to last year. It's not that I don't think that. It's that they so exceeded expectations, exceeded their roster in their results last season in terms of getting to those 91 points. I think 9 times out of 10, if you simulated last year's season, they finished below 88, 87 points 9 times out of 10. So when looking at them last year, they had a minus 37 goal differential. They were one of the worst teams of the modern era to make the goddamn playoffs. They were 29th in goals percentage, 25th in expected goals percentage at 5-on-5, 27th in goals percentage all situations, and 25th in expected goals in all situations. They were 28th in goals per game and 18th in goals against. This was not that good of a team last year. They just eked out close wins and got overtime points racked it up as well. Yes, they did add a decent amount this offseason, but I still think this forward core is very underwhelming. You look at it, Dylan Strome and Alexander Ovechkin are the only proven top 6 forwards heading into next season. They're dealing with a lot of question marks with Tom Wilson, who fell off a decent amount last year. PLD is a massive gamble. Andrew Mangiapane has not been the same player since his 2022 35-goal season. I think the defense score is definitely a strength. I really like the defense score, and I think that's going to be why they're going to go north of 90 points. That's the one strength. The goaltending tandem, in theory, is a strength, but also I don't know if I can trust Logan Thompson and Charlie Lindgren. It is an even split, but I would prefer other teams that have a legit starter, a legit proven 3 to 4 year starter, and then maybe a below average backup than 2 guys that don't have that long of a track record. And Logan Thompson has been in a very favorable situation with the Vegas Golden Knights the last couple of years. I like Spencer Carberry as a coach. It would not shock me one bit if the Washington Capitals make the playoffs, but I think people are a little bit too high on this team considering the adds that they made when last year they really weren't that good of a team. I'm not sure that they're going to have the offensive firepower to contend with some of these teams in the Eastern Conference, and the goalie tandem is a little bit of a question mark, even though I think it could be very good. Which means, yes, me, a New York Islanders fan, I do have the New York Islanders in the playoffs. I'm not trying to be biased with this. I have them at a 43, 28, and 11 record, good for 97 points. I think they're kind of like a reverse Washington Capitals in the sense that the Capitals overperformed versus their roster and their overall results. I think this New York Islanders team probably should have had more points last year when they finished with 94, considering the fact that they blew all those leads. You got to get those leads in the first place. I don't think that's going to happen this season. On top of, I think, even though he's coming off back surgery, which isn't that serious, according to reports, I think Sorokin is going to play much better. I think last year they should have probably been a 98 to 100 point team. And I think after they kept basically the same team, as well as adding Anthony Duclair and Soplakov. I think this goalie tandem is yet again going to be top 2 in the entire NHL, and that's the luxury. Sorokin coming off back surgery, you could have another top 20 goalie in the entire NHL, top 15, in my opinion, and Varley step in until Sorokin's 100%. We look at the top 4 of the defense core. I really like it. Dobson, Romanov, Pelech, Polak. It might not be the flashiest, but it gets the job done, and I just think with some of their ads that they made this offseason, as well as a full season under Patty Waugh, I think this team is really going to click. Not saying they're going to be a 100-point legit contender in the NHL, but considering the fact that this team made the playoffs the last 2 years, 2023, it was literally Sorokin just carrying this team on the back. Then in 2024, it was honestly kind of like the reverse. I think they're going to get both the goaltending and the actual skaters on the same page. And I think this team is going to be a playoff team. And when looking at areas of improvement, I think the penalty kill is a clear one. This team made the playoffs despite having a 71% penalty kill last season. And in prior years, they have been one of the best penalty killing teams in the entire NHL. So I think Waugh is going to be able to get that back on track. And as a result, this team is pretty average in terms of the skaters, but I think the goalie tandem is going to get this team safely into the playoffs. The Carolina Hurricanes in at third. They safely make the playoffs, in my opinion. 42 wins, 24 losses, and 12 overtime or shootout losses. Good for 104 points. I see some people saying this Carolina team isn't that good. It's definitely not as talented as last year's team, but I still think, even though they lost Jake Gensel, that was a trade deadline move, and they did lose Brady Shea and Brett Pesce, but I like the ads of Shane Gothisbehere as well as Sean Walker. I don't think that's that much of a fall off. And Rod Brind'Amour, you can say that he can't win in the playoffs. He objectively is one of the best regular season coaches in the entire NHL. So although the forward forward core talent is really lacking outside of that top line. They still have probably the best defense core in the entire NHL. If Freddie Anderson is healthy and playing like he did towards the end of last season, I think their goalie tandem is going to be very, very good with Kochetkov, a young guy. I believe he's only 24, 25 years old, taking yet another step. So again, Carolina, not the most flashy team. They're not going to be my Stanley Cup pick. They're probably going to lose in the first or second round, but I do think that they're going to safely be a playoff team. They're just too well coached and too balanced defensively, as well as now having a pretty solid goalie tandem. New York Rangers check in at second after winning the President's Trophy. I still have them finishing north of 105 points, 47 wins, 23 losses, 11 overtime or shootout losses. Good for 107 points. I still think this team is very good. They didn't really lose that much this offseason. They gained Riley Smith through trade from the Pittsburgh Penguins. Just a very well-balanced team. I don't love the defense core after Adam Fox, but with Adam Fox, he elevates it to like an above-average defense core, in my opinion. Shesterkin and Quick, not sure which Jonathan Quick we're going to get. He has been pretty inconsistent over prior years, but I expect in a contract year, assuming an extension doesn't happen, Shesterkin's going to be fantastic for the New York Rangers. The top six is pretty goddamn loaded. There's an argument for it being the best in the entire NHL if Riley Smith and Lafreniere takes another step. It's going to be absolutely disgusting. Not sure about this team come playoff time. They've been relying on Igor a lot, but at least in the regular season, and especially with the special teams that this team has, third in power play, third in penalty kill, that's going to be great yet again. Peter Laviolette is a damn good coach, and this is a pretty good roster from the New York Rangers. They're going to make the playoffs pretty easily. Which means at number one, I have the New Jersey Devils. I fell for this trap last year. Actually, I had Carolina winning the division last year, but I had the Devils safely making the playoffs, like 106 points. But I am believing in the New Jersey Devils yet again. Only have them at 108 points. I'm not saying there's some massive gap between them and the Rangers, them and the Carolina Hurricanes. They're not my President's Trophy pick, and we'll see if they're my Stanley Cup pick. But when looking at it, they clogged the two holes that were just so identifiable with this team in terms of the defense core. You go out and get Brett Pesce. You go out and get Brendan Dillon. On top of Dougie Hamilton played 20 goddamn games last year. Having him for another 3/4 of the season is going to be massive. They're a lot more meaner and skilled defense core heading into the season. On top of course, in net, getting Jacob Markstrom. Although I'm not quite as high on Jacob Markstrom as others because he has just been so wildly inconsistent over the years compared to Vanacek and Kira Schmid tandem. It's going to be much better having two veterans like a Jacob Markstrom and a Jake Allen. The top six, very loaded, especially finally after getting a Dawson Mercer deal done. And if guys on the defense core, speaking about that again, if Luke Hughes and Nemec, even though Hughes is hurt for the first couple weeks, but if Hughes and Nemec can take yet another step, they could have one of the best defense cores in the NHL. Forward core, pretty damn good, as well as the goalie tandem shored up. I see no reason why with Sheldon Keefe going back to Rod Brindamore, very good regular season coach. He has the track record. I think he has like the highest points percentage of any coach in NHL history. And yes, that's kind of flawed because before there were overtime shootout losses, but still, he has been proven in the regular season to be able to elevate these guys. And this might be the most talented roster he's ever had, the most well-balanced. Obviously, the Leafs maybe had more superstar talent, but in terms of a balanced roster, I trust Sheldon Keefe to get this team back on track. And the pressure is on Tom Fitzgerald. Even though he doesn't have a 2025 first-round pick, his ass is getting fired if he doesn't make the playoffs. So as well, they're probably going to be very aggressive heading into the trade deadline next season. But yeah, here's the final. Let me know in the comments. What do you think about it? I don't think this is like too controversial. I feel like some people are higher on the Capitals. Some people are maybe a little bit lower on the Islanders. But outside of that, I think most people have the top three in the playoffs, the bottom three not in the playoffs, maybe the Penguins in the playoffs. But let me know in the comments. What do you think about it? Who would you move up? Who would you move down? I'll be seeing you in the next one.